All right, the destructive phase of the bird of time. This is where people get a little bit anxious, and for a good reason. But I think you'll see in the next couple of minutes that it's fairly straightforward, especially when you have the cutoff jig there. Um, and so we'll go over some of those steps. I just shot some video this morning of me modding a fuselage, and I'll just kind of narrate as we go through there to make this happen. Okay, here we go. Okay, so we're just using the cutoff jig here. We got the little drill bit in there to take advantage of the little hole that's in the front of the bird of time. It's probably there for manufacturing reasons. And so we just put that in to lock it on so the orientation in all different directions are locked in, and just make sure you push that in to where it's butting up against the end of the nose. And then you just trace around the back side there. Some pens work better than others. This one was not working well on that gloss paint. But just continue to make sure that you have back pressure on that. You're not wanting to warp that back piece, but just pulling back enough to where there I'm adjusting it to where that nose is connecting with that jig piece, as you see there. And you should be good to go. All right, here comes the power of the Dremel. And this is just a cut off bit that I've got on there. That one's actually a reinforced one. They last a little longer than the other ones, but either ones will work. You can also use a miter saw. Time out, time out. Not a miter saw. I meant a coping saw. There's a big difference. Do not put the nose underneath a miter saw, especially if it was anything but an extremely fine tooth blade. I meant a coping saw. All right, let's continue with the show. If you want to do it the old school way, that works fine also, just takes a little bit longer. I have a window open here, and I still should have a mask on. This stuff is nasty. The smell of this stuff, you'll know once you cut into there, it's just really potent. So make sure you don't take off years of your life by doing this. Either go outside, which would be ideal, or put a good mask on and good ventilation as you go through here. Not as bad if you're not boring into it here with a high-speed Dremel, but either way, it's you'll be able to pick up the smell for sure once you cut into there. Pretty easy process, just take your time here. You're wanting to keep that line there so that if you have any type of adjustments on where you didn't quite cut right, you can sand to the line. So just back off on the line a little bit to where you're just in front of the line if you're talking about from the front of the airplane. So the line remains on the back part, the keeping part of the airplane. And here we go, we should break through here. And voila, there we go. Some of those, that one worked really good. You'll see everything's, all of the still shot is remaining in the lid. Every once in a while I'll get one that they just pack it full more, or it's sloshed to one side to where I will have a few BBs remaining on the other side, so you just have to be careful as you cut around that you don't just try to cut through those. You can just break those out afterwards. But most of them come out pretty good like that, to where you've just got a nice clean deal that you can just throw away. So now I'm just going to show how well it should work as you put that in there. There's the little retaining pieces for the phase wires on the back side, and it should press right in there. Those are extremely flexible nose pieces. Don't worry about cracking it. You're not going to crack it. You can pinch that and bend it all you want. It's a really strong, solid nylon piece. The very underside of the bird of time on all of them, they actually, when they clamshell those two together, the two sides, there's a little bit of a bulge on one side that I did not design into the piece. Mine is symmetrical, theirs is not. So just with a little Bondo, you'll clean that up. You'll see it, it's just very, very minor, but just that's what it is. Just one side has a little bit more of a lobe than the other. Okay, here's the other fun part. And really, if you have some tin snips, some longer cutting pliers would be better. I don't have any, but you just get in there and start cutting away. You'll hear a bunch of cracking and terrible noises, And I've never messed up a fuselage on this. It's never broken a fuselage. It's always come out well to where it's just the wood. Right there, that's the trickiest part right there, is to get that in there. You can't really cut it all the way through because it's kind of glued onto the other backer piece behind it. And usually the most common casualty here, if I have any, in fact the only casualty, is that back plate that I was just cutting on. Sometimes when you wiggle that off, you'll break off part of the laminate on the piece behind it, and it's just a cosmetic problem. You can backfill that with a wood filler or whatever, or Bondo, if you're worried about the look of it. But it just tends to delaminate part of the plywood, probably, I don't know, 30-40% of the time. So this time it doesn't. I'm lucky it comes out clean. I'm just cutting through the front side. What we're trying to do basically is separate the two sides so that we can wiggle them independently, which allows us to break that glue bond. The glue in here is extremely brittle, in that it doesn't take a whole lot for that to snap and crack. Works great for its purpose, but once you separate the two sides out like that, then it just becomes really easy to get out. So I'm just working on getting that out. There's the piece there, and in we go for some more. I feel like a dentist here, a very bad dentist. Another wisdom tooth there. The bottom part there where you see the glue bond, we're not actually, and I'll show me partially grinding that out, but we're not needing to get that all the way out, because the battery connector piece actually is designed to be able to kind of go around that, and so to actually have a little bit of that remaining in there as a visual to where the battery adapter piece ought to go is great. Getting the last piece there. Alright, woohoo, I got it out. So here we're going to use the Dremel again with a flap wheel. That's what I found works best. Now, all the way, so those side, you can see where the adhesive is on the sides. We're going to be able to grind those out. That's basically just so you don't cut yourself when you're working in there. They can be fairly sharp. So there we go, went and got my Dremel. And we're just going to grind those back as best as we can on the sides, all the way toward the back area. We can't quite get that Dremel wheel back in there, and you can just hand sand that out. But once again, basically what we're trying to do here is just avoid having a sharp edge, so when you work with the electronics and stuff, you don't cut it. We're not actually needing this space that we're clearing up, but cosmetic. Okay, here I haven't, wasn't paying attention, forgot that I had an audience that was trying to watch and learn from me, and I kind of go back to my typical speeds that I do things around here. It's more of in the wrist type of a talent with you guys with time. I think you'll be able to do this as well, but I don't expect you to work at this pace. So once again, I apologize about that. Was not remembering where I was. But that's what you will end up there, is a more user-friendly cockpit area there that you should be able to you shouldn't be slicing your fingers on. Okay, now we get to concentrate on getting these guide tubes out. This top one, I actually don't know what it is. I should by now, but I don't. My guess is that it's probably for an antenna to feed in through there, because it doesn't connect in the back right to be used as the elevator tube guide. So I don't know. Anyway, we don't use it how we're set up, so whatever it's intended for, it's coming out. So this next part, honestly, I've never had this that I can recall happen. I can usually wiggle that one and pull it out as well. You can see here I'm starting to be able to get it out, and then it snags and it will not come out. There's some little chunk of adhesive back there that just was not being friendly to me. So I keep trying, and ultimately here I fail, and so I end up having to try plan B. So I will go ahead and cut that off there and take a pair of screwdriver here in a minute and push that out. So if you are unlucky like me this day, here's an option of how to be able to push that out through the other way as well. Okay, and finally we get that thing out of there. I don't know why I'm showing it to the camera. I think it's pretty obvious what just came out of there, but all right, so be it. Now we're gonna wrongly grab for those clippers again and clip out that bottom piece. I really should be cutting those out with a hot knife, because when I do it this way, it tends to want to split that tube because they're fairly brittle, and then you've got kind of a splintered end on the side that you're wanting to keep down in there. So I'm also just showing there that not so good. I accidentally broke out that little eyelet where that was in there, just a cosmetic blemish, but you can just sand that kind of out flat so you're not running into anything. Here I'm showing you what you should have done on the bottom one with a heated razor, so you don't once again get that splitting on there. So I'm just kind of showing how it can be done, and then here on the model itself, I'm just going to heat it up and kind of melt the edge of that to kind of keep that from splitting out more. And that is pretty much the end of our demolition. All right, so there we go. Hopefully those tips and a little bit of hands-on video will show you some of the maybe the details that you had concerns over before, and give you the guts to be able to decapitate your bird of time and bring it back to life, and experience the new freedoms that you have with a electrocuted bird of time, as one of the customers recently referred it to. Anyway, you guys have a good day. We'll see you. Goodbye.